Have you ever wondered why you desire something so deeply, yet it feels just out of reach, like it exists somewhere, but not here? What if I told you that's absolutely true, because it does exist, just not in this realm you call 3D. In this video, we'll explore one of the most powerful truths behind manifestation beyond the 3D. Using timeless teachings on the unseen realm of manifestation, you'll understand why everything you want already exists and how to reach it by escaping the illusion of the physical world. Based on law of assumption, 4D reality, and the belief that imagination creates reality, this lesson will unlock a truth you can live right now. I remember the evening well. It was one of those quiet, unremarkable nights where nothing of interest moved in the physical world. The streets were dim, the air still, and in my outer experience I had little to show. No great wealth, no plan set before me, no one calling with opportunity. The phone was silent, and yet there was a stirring within me, a quiet impulse that said, go inward, not as a desperate act, not as escapism, but with full authority, as if the real world was not out there, but within. And so I sat in the stillness and began to construct, with precision and faith, an imaginal act that contradicted everything I was currently experiencing. I saw myself shaking hands with someone who congratulated me. I heard the voice say, "You did it," and I felt a warmth in my chest as though I had already completed some magnificent success. I could see the room, the texture of the chairs, the sound of voices in the background. I smelled the faint scent of polished wood, and most of all, I felt myself there, not as a passive watcher, but as a living participant. I repeated this experience until it impressed me more than the room I was physically sitting in. It became more real than my current surroundings. I stayed there, in that feeling, in that assumption, until it took root. When I opened my eyes, nothing had changed, but everything had changed. I had planted something invisible that could not be taken back. It had already been received in consciousness and therefore by law must be expressed. There was no anxiety, no questioning. I knew it had been done. The outer world simply needed to catch up. 3 days passed, and then the first thread unraveled. An unexpected letter, followed by a visit, followed by an opportunity, and then another. All of them seemingly unrelated, yet perfectly aligned to the scene I had assumed. What had once seemed impossible now unfolded naturally, as though it had always been destined. But I knew the truth. It had not been destined in the world of facts. It had been chosen in the world of imagination. And what is chosen there when fully assumed must become destiny. This is the great secret hidden in plain sight. Your imagination is not a daydream. It is the operating power that governs what the world reflects back to you. You do not need to force events, nor chase after outcomes. You need only to dwell in the end, to feel what you would feel were it already true. And when that feeling becomes natural, the outer world must conform. It cannot do otherwise. Many people imagine what they want, but continue to live from the state of not having it. They think about the thing, but they do not feel from the thing. They speak of it as a hope, not as a possession, and so they delay the manifestation because they persist in the state of separation. You cannot desire something and simultaneously assume it is yours. The two contradict. You must leave behind the longing and enter the having. When I sat in that small room and imagined success, I did not try to make it happen. I did not plan the steps. I did not concern myself with the how. I simply became it. In thought, in feeling, in identity, I assumed that I was already the one I desired to be. That assumption, maintained and nourished, reorganized the structure of my world. It did not take struggle. It took inner alignment. You must understand that every state already exists. The version of you who is successful already lives, not in time, but in eternity. The only difference between the you who lacks and the you who thrives is the state of consciousness you inhabit. When you choose to occupy the state of the desired result, you fuse with that version, and the world begins to mirror it. There is no need to beg, to plead, or to wait for a sign. The sign is the feeling, the inner knowing, that quiet assurance that what you have imagined is already yours. If you maintain that knowing, the facts will reshape themselves to support it. It is not your responsibility to make the external match the internal. Your responsibility is to dwell inwardly in the experience you desire, feel the conversation, walk the steps, hear the applause, sense the relief, taste the victory, and repeat it until it feels real. Do this not once, not twice, but until you know it is done. And then release it and live from it. Every time you close your eyes and feel yourself into the state of your fulfilled desire, you collapse the old version of reality and enter the realm where the thing already exists. You bypass the physical timeline and step into the 4D field where all things are complete. There is no future in imagination. It is always now. What you feel to be true now must unfold, because imagination is the only reality. This experience did not happen to me because I was lucky or unique. It happened because I applied the principle with purity. I did not question it, nor did I mix it with doubt. I entered fully into the state, and the state claimed me. You are not separate from what you desire. You are only separate by assumption. Change the assumption, and you change the experience. The outer world has no choice but to follow the inner decree. But the inner decree must be made with authority. Do not test the waters. Do not wait for evidence before you feel it. Feel it first. Evidence will follow. That is the law. That is the only law that matters. The five senses are wonderful servants, but terrible masters. Most people live entirely at their mercy, judging what is real by what can be touched, tasted, seen, heard, or smelled. But these senses are the last to know. They are reporters of what has already occurred. They do not create. They report. When you understand this, you no longer let your senses dictate the boundaries of what is possible. You stop measuring life by what your eyes show you and begin measuring by what your imagination allows you to feel. If something does not exist in your external world yet, it is not because it is not real. It is because your senses have not caught up to it. The manifestation begins in the unseen realm, in a world that is felt long before it is seen. That realm is not bound by physical conditions. It is not held hostage by time or limited by logic. It is the fourth dimensional field, the field of consciousness, where all things already exist. When you desire something and look outward for confirmation, you delay it. For in seeking proof with your senses, you admit that it is not yet yours. That confession strengthens the illusion of separation. But when you close your eyes and look inward, not to wish or daydream, but to assume and accept, you move into the creative process. You begin to construct in a medium far more powerful than matter. You begin to build with thought, mold with feeling, and activate with belief. The world you see around you is not the cause of your inner state. It is the effect. It is the reflection of previous states you have lived in, accepted, and persisted in. The outer world is frozen belief. It is hardened imagination. To change it, you must go to the root. The root is not in your environment. It is in your awareness. The moment you change your state of being, the future begins to rearrange itself around you. But the change does not come because the senses approve. The change begins the moment you decide to believe in something your senses deny. This is why imagination is not fiction. It is the entrance to the only true creative power. When you imagine something and feel it to be real, you shift your energy field, and that field broadcasts a frequency into the invisible fabric of reality. That frequency is matched by events, people, and circumstances. The more persistent your feeling, the more exact the reflection becomes. It is not your effort that makes it happen. It is your inner acceptance. What you accept as true in imagination is sustained, becomes fact. The greatest challenge to most people is that they have lived so long under the tyranny of the senses that they believe nothing exists until it is proven physically. But in truth, the world moves from the unseen to the seen. All that is visible was once invisible. The chair you sit on, the clothes you wear, the house you live in, all began as a thought, as an idea. They were once imagined, and now they are tangible. So too is it with your desires. They begin in thought and enter form when you withdraw belief from appearances and place it into assumption. You may say, but how can I believe in something I cannot see? And I say, you do this all the time. Every time you worry, you imagine something undesirable before it happens and feel it so deeply that you prepare for it. That is negative faith. That is belief in the unseen used against yourself. The same power turned toward your desires creates miracles. You need only reverse the flow. Assume that what you want already exists, and let your feeling carry you beyond what is presently sensed. The five senses are slow. They're bound by space and time, but your inner eye sees instantly. Your feeling knows instantly. When you rely on what you feel inwardly, instead of what you see outwardly, you begin to enter the realm where true change is possible. You begin to shake from spirit rather than struggle from flesh. The spirit does not need tools or evidence. It creates by vision. It moves by conviction. It reveals by reflection. You are not limited by what your eyes see. You are limited only by the boundaries of what you accept as real. And if you can dare to believe in the invisible, to feel it long enough that it becomes more familiar than your current conditions, the world will echo your belief. It will obey your conviction. You will discover that the senses were not meant to lead you, but to follow you. And they will follow, as shadows follow light. There is a realm beyond this one, not above it, but deeper than it. It is here now, waiting for your entry. You do not travel to it by ship or by flight. You enter it by closing your eyes and opening your inner awareness. You leave behind the reports of the outer world and turn within, not as escape, but as command. The one who controls the inner state controls the world that reflects it. You must begin now to trust what you feel more than what you see. Not feelings of mood or whim, but deep, deliberate assumption. Ask yourself not what is, but what would be if it were already done. Live from that feeling. That is where the true self resides. And the self that dwells in that state, though unseen, is more real than the one who waits for the world to change. The body may still sit in one room, but the spirit may walk in palaces. The bank account may still say little, but the heart may feel abundance. The calendar may still read delay, but your soul may declare now. And what is declared now in feeling must be shown later, in form. The senses will come to testify, but only after you believe. You must understand, if you wish to command the world of effects, that there is no power greater than the act of assumption. To assume something is not to pretend, and it is not to hope. It is to accept something as true, even when all the facts around you scream the opposite. The world may tell you it is not time yet, that you are not worthy, that conditions are not ripe, and yet you say, quietly and without wavering, it is already done. That is assumption. That is the law. When one assumes the wish fulfilled, they are not asking for permission. They are not negotiating with the world or appealing to something outside of themselves. They are simply choosing to be in possession of that which they desire, choosing to feel it now, to move, breathe, and live from it, to walk as though it were true, to eat as one would eat if it were true, to go to sleep with the feeling of its truth wrapping around the heart like a warm blanket of certainty. Do not confuse this with arrogance. It is not the boastful claim of the ego, but the quiet knowing of the spirit. To assume the wish fulfilled is not to declare superiority over others, but to acknowledge unity with the state you desire. You are not reaching toward it, you are merging with it, becoming it. There is no separation between the one who wants and the one who has. There is only a shift in identity. That is the essence of assumption, shifting identity. Many will say, but I don't feel it yet. And that is precisely the issue. They wait for the feeling to arise from facts instead of letting the feeling create the facts. You must feel it before you see it. That is the requirement. If you refuse to feel wealthy until your account confirms it, you delay it indefinitely. But if you feel wealthy now, with no outer cause, the world must conform. It must mirror your inner. This is not wishful thinking. This is law. To assume the wish fulfilled means to deny the evidence of the senses and place your faith in the unseen. It is not denial of reality, but recognition that your reality is dictated by your inner world, not your outer one. If you continue to assume lack, limitation, and failure, the world will gladly provide evidence to prove you right. But if you assume abundance, favor, and completion and persist in that assumption, no matter how improbable it seems, the world will be compelled to organize itself around your belief. This is not about visualization alone. It is not about reciting affirmations like a parrot. It is about entering the state of being fully and without hesitation. When you assume the wish fulfilled, you do not act as if you are pretending. You act as one who remembers. There is a dignity in it, a calmness. You no longer seek because you know. You no longer struggle because you are aligned. You no longer doubt because you dwell in the end. Assumption is the bridge between desire and manifestation. It is the space where the invisible becomes visible. But that bridge must be crossed in consciousness. You do not walk it with your feet, you walk it with your feeling. When you begin to occupy the mental space of your desire as if it were real, you begin to attract all conditions necessary to support it. The people, the opportunities, the timing, all come together, not because you chased them, but because you called them silently by assuming their presence. Think of it this way. Every state of being exists now, not in some distant future, not in a timeline far from your grasp. Now, the version of you who already has what you want is not a future version, it is a present version in another state of awareness. And the only way to experience that version is to assume its truth now, to step into it with confidence, not once, not twice, but until it becomes natural, until it feels so familiar that you no longer question it. There is a sacred secret in repetition. When you assume something again and again, not with desperation, but with certainty, the mind begins to accept it as normal. And once it becomes normal in the mind, the outer world is no longer resistant. You are no longer working against yourself. The feeling of naturalness is the key. If you can feel the end as natural, the outer must yield. There are those who try this once or twice, and when the world remains unmoved, they abandon it. But the wise persist. They do not wait for change. They become the change. They occupy the feeling until the walls of their old identity dissolve, until the old story loses its grip. And when that inner transformation is complete, the outer transformation is inevitable. It must follow. The law does not fail. So do not wait. Do not wish. Do not seek signs or omens. Assume. Take the bold step into the unseen. Let your feelings be the architects of your reality. Begin now to feel what you would feel if it were already true. And keep feeling it. That feeling is the secret. That assumption is the key. And the world will respond because it must. There is no power outside of consciousness. What appears as circumstances, events, obstacles, or assistance, all of it is nothing more than a shadow cast by the inner state. Yet most people continue to attempt change from the outside in. They argue with others, force outcomes, manipulate details, all the while remaining in the same internal identity. They fight mirrors, unaware that the reflection cannot be altered until the face that produces it has changed. The world is a mirror, and your state of consciousness is the face it reflects. You were never meant to mold the outer world like clay. It is not your role to hammer reality into shape with effort and noise. The outer world is already finished. What you are living is the harvest of past assumptions, the fruit of states once occupied in thought and feeling. To persist in trying to change the effect without changing the cause is to repeat the cycle of frustration. But to shift the cause, the inner state, is to engage in true creation. You move silently within, and the world answers loudly without. A man who dwells in lack may receive a sudden sum of money, yet if his inner state remains unchanged, he will quickly return to poverty. A woman who feels unloved may enter a relationship, but if her state is still one of rejection, the union will crumble. You cannot outpace your state. It will follow you wherever you go, calling back to itself the same conditions again and again. There is no escape from self, but there is infinite freedom in the changing of self. When you shift your state, you shift your world, not by magic, but by law. What you feel yourself to be determines what you perceive and what responds to you. A man who sees himself as confident will see opportunity where another sees risk. A woman who feels worthy will be treated with respect, even by those who once ignored her. It is not because the world has changed, but because their position within the world has shifted. They are standing in a new place within themselves, and therefore draw a different picture on the canvas of life. There is no need to explain this shift to anyone. It is silent, internal, and unprovable to those who rely on facts alone, but the results will speak. As you occupy a new state and persist in it, the people around you will change, the situations you face will shift, and the doors once closed will swing open. You do not need to push those doors. You need only to walk through them in your imagination until they open of their own accord. The greatest illusion is that the outer world has power over the inner. This belief enslaves the mind, for it leads one to wait, to react, to hope for improvement rather than to cause it. But when the illusion is lifted and you recognize that the inner state is primary, you no longer wait for permission, you become cause. You stop blaming conditions, people, or timing. You take up your power in silence and begin the work that matters. The work of assuming, embodying, and persisting. You must become the one who already has the thing desired, not in words, but in essence. Speak less of what you want, feel more of what it is like to already possess it. Live from the tone of fulfillment. Dress, think, walk, and sleep from the reality of the wish fulfilled. You do not need to impress this new state upon others. You need only to impress it upon yourself. For as you impress it inwardly, life will be compelled to express it outward. Do not be discouraged by appearances. The former things may linger for a time. They are the echoes of your previous state. Let them pass without resistance. Hold firm to the new assumption. Though nothing seems to change at first, the foundations are already moving. The unseen is aligning, and soon the visible will reflect the invisible with stunning clarity. To shift your inner state is not difficult. It requires willingness. It requires a decision to cease arguing for limitation and begin embodying truth. The truth that your consciousness is the center of your world. The truth that you are always the one in authority, even when you pretend not to be. Every complaint, every frustration, every judgment of circumstance is a silent confession of forgotten power. But the moment you reclaim your role as cause, the tone changes. The mind becomes quiet, the heart becomes bold, and the world begins to bend. And so, when something is lacking in your world, do not attempt to fill the lack. Instead, remove your attention from it entirely. Enter a state where that thing is already yours. Dwell there. Think from it. Not of it, but from it. That shift, that quiet, deliberate change of feeling is the only true act of creation. Everything else is reaction. The world responds to states, not words. It reads your feeling, not your logic, and it is never wrong. Whatever you are, it confirms. Whatever you persist in, it must reflect. It cannot resist you. But you can resist yourself by denying your true place, the seat of inner dominion. When you return to that seat and speak from it as one who knows, the reflection must change. And it always. Time is not the master it appears to be. It is not a wall you must climb over, nor a gap you must endure. It is an illusion sustained by the senses and enforced by habit. Most people live as if time is the only gatekeeper between them and their desire. They say, one day I'll be free, or eventually it will happen. And by doing so, they cast their desires further away into a future that never quite arrives. The truth is this: time bends to consciousness. It is not required for manifestation. It is only required for those who believe in delay. The moment you assume a thing to be real, the moment you feel it as done, you alter the structure of your present. You collapse time. You remove the seeming space between your current state and the fulfilled desire. What would have taken months now moves swiftly. What seemed far away is drawn near. But this cannot be accomplished through force. It must be done by feeling, by assumption. by the inner conviction that the thing already exists and belongs to you now. You are not waiting for anything. You are not progressing toward your manifestation. You are selecting it. And selection is not bound by clocks. It is instant. The moment you fully accept a new state of consciousness, the old begins to dissolve and the new begins to materialize. You may not see immediate results, but the movement has already begun. And the length of time between assumption and manifestation depends not on outer factors, but on your inner fidelity to that new state. If you dwell in the feeling of being without, then time becomes your enemy. It stretches and lingers, it tortures with delay. But if you dwell in the feeling of already having, then time collapses. The world begins to mirror that state swiftly and faithfully. This is the essence of dominion. Not over others, not over events, but over time itself. You command time by ignoring it, by removing your attention from the calendar and placing it on the end. This is why the wish must be fulfilled in imagination before it is fulfilled in fact. You must go to the end, not toward it, but to it, and dwell there, not momentarily, not as a visitor, but as a resident. The longer you remain there, the more natural the state becomes. And when it becomes natural, it becomes inevitable. The world has no choice but to confirm what you have accepted as true. Do not ask how long it will take. That question betrays doubt. It reveals that you are still counting days instead of creating realities. The moment you concern yourself with time, you reintroduce distance. You return the desire to the realm of not yet. But when you feel it now, when you speak from it, when you think from it, then time is swallowed up in certainty. Manifestation is no longer a matter of when, but of knowing. Every outcome exists now, not later, not in some distant probability, now. You do not make it real by waiting. You make it real by feeling. And when you feel it deeply enough, the outer world must conform. Time cannot resist the authority of your inner conviction. It is plastic, obedient, subject to your assumption. You are not manifesting into the future. You are manifesting into now. The senses may still show the former things, but your inner world is the mold, and it has already changed. The change is instant. The expression takes the form of what appears to be time, but do not be deceived by this. The cause is already set. The result is assured. Some may ask, but what if I need this thing urgently? Then urgency must be replaced with certainty, panic with peace. The urgent heart speaks from lack, but the peaceful heart speaks from possession, and only the voice of possession can draw the thing to you. Urgency stretches time. Certainty ends it. So go now into the feeling. Do not beg, do not strive. Become. Be now what you desire to be, and remain there. If the world seems unchanged, remain. If others contradict your assumption, remain. If doubt whispers, remain. That persistence dissolves all opposition. That unwavering focus is the secret door through which time collapses and reality bends. There is no distance between you and what you want, except the distance created by your mind. There is no time separating you from your vision, except the time you assume must exist. But assumption is choice, and you can choose again, right now. You can feel now what you would feel if your desire were fulfilled, and that feeling, if sustained, is the death of delay. Let the world follow. Let the senses report later. Your work is done in the invisible, and it is done now. You do not chase what you already possess. You do not wait for what is already true. You simply live from the end, and in doing so, time itself obeys. There is not just one version of you. There are infinite versions, each already alive in their own plane of assumption. One version is rich, another is poor. One is joyful, another is bitter. One is celebrated, another is ignored. These are not futures you might become. They are present states you can occupy. The only thing separating you from any version is your awareness, your acceptance, your assumption. That is all. You are not becoming anything. You are selecting. And you select by consciousness. The states already finished, complete, eternal. You do not have to build them. You do not have to force them into existence. They already are. You need only to shift into the version of yourself who already is what you desire to be. Not by effort, not by striving, but by alignment. Alignment with identity, alignment with being. When you change the concept of yourself, you change the world that responds to you. You shift your internal definition and a new pattern emerges externally. The old people in your life begin to treat you differently. New people appear without your planning. Circumstances fall into place in ways that no logic can explain, and yet none of it is mysterious. Once you know the truth, the world is yourself pushed out, and it mirrors not what you say, but what you are. To be is the command, not to try, not to hope, but to be. To walk in the consciousness of the version you choose, to think from it, speak from it, and rest in it. You do not beg for the new state to come. You inhabit it. You become the one for whom that reality is normal, and then everything outside conforms, not because you made it happen, but because you made it so in consciousness. This is not about changing conditions. It is about changing your dwelling place. You are always dwelling in a state, and that state is producing your experience. Whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, you are in a state now, and that state is creating your world. The question is never whether you are manifesting, you are always manifesting. You may long for a different life, but if you continue to define yourself by the same story, the same memories, the same self-emission, you cannot shift. Longing is not movement, wanting is not choosing, only assumption changes state. You must let go of the former identity, the one who lacks, the one who waits, the one who doubts, and clothe yourself in the new identity, even if no evidence yet supports it, especially then. This inner movement is subtle but powerful. You don't need to explain it to others. You don't need to prove it. You only need to accept it within. The moment you say to yourself, I am now this version, and feel it to be true, you begin to walk a new path, though your feet have not moved. Life begins to arrange itself around your new self. It must. Reality is compelled by consciousness. Every state contains its own behavior, its own thoughts, its own reactions, its own conditions. When you enter a new state, you do not need to figure out how to act. The state acts through you. The thoughts come naturally. The decisions feel obvious. The opportunities that match it appear, not because you chased them, but because they were already part of that version's life. You did not create them, you joined them. To shift states is not to fix the old. It is to leave it entirely. You cannot patch a hole in a boat that no longer serves you. You must step onto the new vessel and let the old one drift away. The moment you claim your new identity in feeling, in silence, in certainty, the work is done. You may repeat it to strengthen it, but the initial movement is instant. You cross dimensions with your awareness, not your effort. When the world still shows remnants of the old state, do not be fooled. Do not return to what you have left. Do not let appearances dictate your being. Remain faithful to the new identity. Respond to the world not as the person you were, but as the person you have become. And as you persist in this, the world will forget your old story. It will forget the previous version. It will recognize only what you now embody. The self is not static. It is fluid, malleable. The self-image is the blueprint of your experience. At every moment you are drawing from that blueprint, whether deliberately or unconsciously. So choose it with awareness. Choose it with joy. Choose the version of yourself who already has what you seek. Choose the state that includes the solution, not the problem. And let that state unfold itself through you without resistance. The great mistake is to wait for the outer world to change before you shift within. But the wise know that the shift within is the only change that matters. Everything else is echo. Everything else is consequence. And that consequence will be beautiful, harmonious, and aligned when the state you inhabit is beautiful, harmonious, and aligned. So close your eyes, not to escape, but to enter. Enter the world where you are already the one you want to be. Walk through its streets, breathe its air, think its thoughts, answer its calls. And when you open your eyes again, let that feeling remain. Let that identity remain. For the version you dwell in now is the life you will walk in tomorrow. Where you live mentally is far more important than where you stand physically. Your address is not your city, not your street, not your house. Your true residence is your state of consciousness. That is the environment you carry with you, the air you breathe even in silence. It determines what comes to you, what stays, what departs, and what repeats. You are always living somewhere within, and life unfolds according to that unseen address. Man may reside in a palace and yet dwell in poverty. Another may live in a small room but carry a consciousness of royalty. One walks in defeat, though his clothes are fine and his schedule full. Another wears rags but walks in dominion because he knows who he is in consciousness. What you truly possess is not measured by your surroundings but by your assumptions. You do not rise to your goals. You fall to your self-imagine. And your self-imagine is built in the quiet hours, when no one is watching, when you entertain thoughts and nurture feelings that either limit or liberate you. The world around you reflects not your effort, but your mental habitation. If your inner conversations are filled with lack, fear, doubt, and complaint, then no matter what actions you take, you will see more reasons to lack, fear, doubt, and complain. If you speak internally as one who is neglected, even love will feel distant. If you carry the inner tone of being unwanted, even kindness will appear suspicious. You are not reacting to the world, you are reacting to your own assumptions, mirrored back through people and events. But the moment you shift your inner home, everything changes. You do not need to fix the people around you. You do not need to travel across the globe in search of opportunity. Change your mental dwelling, and new people will enter your life without force. You will find yourself at the right place at the right time, not because of luck, but because your inner state is always leading you. You are magnetized to what matches your current vibration. Every condition has a home in consciousness. There's a mental address for wealth, and there is one for debt. There's a state where healing is natural, and there is a state where illness lingers. These are not external places. They are inner coordinates. When you change the channel, the broadcast changes. You do not change the world by fighting shadows. You change it by adjusting the light within. You must begin to treat your inner state with the same seriousness you give to your physical shelter. If your home had holes in the roof, you would not ignore them. If the floor was rotting, you would fix it. And yet how many live in mental states where fear leaks in daily, where resentment and jealousy rot the foundation? They decorate the exterior, but leave the internal structure in ruins. And then they wonder why life does not support them. Your thoughts are the furniture of your mind. Your beliefs are its architecture. Your inner speech is the atmosphere. If it is heavy, damp with worry, cold with doubt, you will find it hard to thrive. But if it is warm with assurance, bright with faith, and filled with the fragrance of gratitude, then every day feels like spring, regardless of the weather outside. To build a new mental home, begin with your self-talk. What do you say to yourself when no one listens? That is the voice that creates. Most are their own worst prophets, predicting sorrow, expecting rejection, and rehearsing failure. They do not need enemies. They oppose themselves every time they think. But if you change your language, you change your atmosphere. Speak to yourself as you would to one deeply loved. Honor your own being in silence. That reverence will radiate outward. Choose your mental neighborhood wisely. Do not dwell in comparison. Do not rent space in envy. Do not visit despair, not even for a moment. These states are not just moods. They are real places in consciousness, and what you feel long enough, you will begin to see. Live in the house of abundance. Take up residence in joy. Let peace be your postal code. When you do, the letters that arrive will match your new address. Opportunities, friendships, surprises, they will all know where to find you. And remember, you cannot fool life. You cannot pretend to live in wealth while complaining of lack. You cannot say you are loved while nurturing wounds. The world listens to the deeper music of your state, not the surface noise of your words. And it always echoes back what you sing within. So sing the melody of your desired reality, not just in moments of meditation, but all day long. Let it become your natural tone. The one who changes the inner environment changes everything. There is no more powerful move than to relocate in consciousness. You do not need to cross oceans. You need only to cross out the old assumptions and install new ones, plant new beliefs, rearrange your mental furniture, air out the rooms, let new light in. And soon your external world will mirror the home you have made in consciousness. Everything you have ever desired, everything you are reaching for, everything you hope to see, touch, and experience, it already exists. It does not exist in the future, it exists now, not in the visible world, but in the invisible dimension of consciousness. And your only task is not to bring it into existence, but to choose it, to claim it, to dwell in it as though it were already part of your life, because it is. There is no creation, there is only realization. What is not yet real to the senses is already real in a higher realm. And that realm, though unseen, is more powerful than all the appearances before you. You do not bring your desires into being by trying to make them happen. You bring them forth by embodying the version of yourself for whom they are already true. You do not move through time to meet your desire. You move in consciousness to the version of you who has already received it. And once that version is assumed, once it feels natural, the world cannot help but reflect it. Do not be fooled by appearances. The world of facts is always behind. It is the lagging shadow of what has already been accepted internally. When you look to the senses for proof, you only reaffirm delay. When you say, I do not see it, therefore it must not be real, you bind yourself to the illusion of absence. But when you say, it is already mine, though the senses do not yet confirm it, you elevate yourself to the place of cause, and that is where reality begins to shift. Everything exists now. The health you seek, the love you crave, the security you long for. They are not potentials waiting to unfold. They are certainties waiting to be chosen. You do not need to ask how. The how belongs to the mechanism of expression, which is not your concern. You are not the maker of the bridge. You are the one who walks across it, and the bridge is built the moment you step. You must live from the assumption that what you desire is already so, not just during quiet moments of meditation, but in your thoughts, your language, your reactions, your moods. Everything in your being must reflect the truth of your assumption. You cannot assume wealth and complain of lack. You cannot assume love and feel abandoned. The inner and the outer must align, and that alignment begins with feeling. Feeling is the only doorway into the present tense of manifestation. The world answers not to your words, but to your emotional acceptance. If you feel it real, it becomes real. If you doubt it, the world will delay its confirmation. The law does not respond to begging. It responds to identity. Who you are being determines what you are seeing. And who you are being is a matter of choice. In every moment you are selecting a self. You are affirming a story, whether consciously or by habit. And the world mirrors back that story with perfect faithfulness. There are no exceptions to this law. There is no deviation from its order. You receive not what you want, but what you are. And what you are is defined by what you feel to be true now. This is why the present moment is sacred. It is not a passing instant. It is the gateway to all realities. You do not need to travel through time to change your life. You need only to occupy a new present, one where your desire is already fulfilled, one where the end has already been reached. You do not wait for it. You assume it. You live from it. There is great power in quiet acceptance, not passive surrender, but confident embodiment. When you say silently to yourself, this is already mine, and feel no resistance in that statement, you have entered the state. You have claimed the version of reality where your desire is fact. And though the outer world may still echo the old, the new has already been planted. And the seed does not need your worry. It needs your stillness. Many struggle because they shift states constantly. One moment they believe, the next they doubt. One day they assume, the next they question. And so the garden is disturbed. The seed is dug up before it takes root. But the one who persists, who plants the assumption and remains, will see the harvest. It cannot be otherwise. The world must reflect what is stabilized in consciousness. You are not waiting for your desire, it is waiting for you. To become the one who has it, and becoming is not effort, it is alignment. You become by choosing the feeling of the end and living from it until it is the only atmosphere you know. When that happens, when it becomes more real than the absence of the thing, then the outer world becomes a servant of the inner vision. There is no distance in consciousness. The only separation is belief in separation. The moment you drop the idea that your desire is far, you draw it near. The moment you stop waiting, the moment you stop hoping and begin embodying, everything rearranges. It must. For what you feel to be true determines what must appear. So remember, everything you want already exists. Not as fantasy, not as possibility, but as fact. In the unseen. You are not moving toward it. You are moving in consciousness. And when the move is real, when it is felt, assumed, and lived, the mirror of the world will reveal it without hesitation. You have nothing to wait for. The work is already done the moment you assume it so. There is no future event to be earned, no condition to be pleaded for, and no power outside yourself that grants or withholds. What you seek is already yours. The only thing left is your recognition of it, your willingness to move inwardly and claim your inheritance. It is already established in the unseen. All things exist now. Every outcome, every possibility, every version of self. The states are eternal. You do not create, you select. You do not chase, you become. And as you become, the world rearranges itself with silent precision to reflect the state you now embody. Nothing resists you but your own contradiction. Nothing delays you but your own return to the former state. The one who persists in the assumption lives the result. You were never meant to build reality from the outside. You are meant to dwell in the state of the wish fulfilled and let the outer world conform. That is the divine order. That is the secret. What you see is not what is real. What you feel is real. And what you persist in feeling becomes fact. So stand where you desire to be, inwardly, now. Let the feeling saturate you until it becomes the most natural thing in the world. Let your thoughts bend to the new identity. Let your reactions match your assumption. And let your world reflect your dominion. You are not here to wish, you are here to remember. And what you remember, you become.